This video is to explain some of the steps I use to make these. This is a face shield extension to try to keep people a little bit safer in situations where you can't wear a face mask because students or other people need to see your lips and your face, as well as maybe using a microphone that might be muffled by a mask. We use these here at a school that works with children who are hard of hearing and have cochlear implants or hearing aids, but there's other uses for this, definitely. This video will show the steps, and then there's also written directions on this webpage. Making a template. Now this is the shield I'm using this time, but this isn't the shield that I used before, so I need to make a new template. This particular shield, I can pop the plastic off, but the last shield I worked with, you couldn't. So let me show you how to do it the harder way, and then I'll show you the easy way. So what I did last time was I just kind of lightly traced around the edge of the template. I use a grocery bag because they're cheap and I have a lot of them. So if I mess it up, I don't feel bad because I have plenty more. So I'm just tracing around the outside. That's about it. Now, if I cut this out, it should match the plastic that I already have on the shield. Now, I am not super exacting on these things because it's just not my personality. So this should fit this. You should be able to wrap it around and not see any plastic anywhere. Now the kind of cheater way that I can do on this one, because this just pops off, is I could have just laid it flat. But the last one, like I said, I couldn't. It had like 5 clips and you couldn't really easily take it off. This is made by a local 3D printer, Matthew Gilbert, and he just used an existing acetate plastic, like from a home office supply store kind of thing. So that's just a 3-ring binder, like file folder thing. So now I have my template. The second thing I want to do to make my template is to find the center. And I like to mark the center on both sides. That way it's not, doesn't matter how I pick it up. And there you have your template. So this is my fabric. Now I've already pre-washed it on hot and dried it in the dryer, so it's done all the shrinking it's going to do. I say in the directions to use 1 sheet, but this one I already had it cut into 2 sheets. So I just have them folded inside each other right now. Right sides together and then creased in half. So since this is creased in half and I want my top, I'll just say up here, and I'm going to mark this again. I'm pretty sloppy, but none of this is going to be seen because this is all the wrong side of the fabric. So I can kind of see that mark, good enough. Then I'm going to flip it over and do the other side. This is where having that template marked in half comes really in handy. Okay, now I don't use a ruler for this next part because I sew a lot and I kind of know myself on a sewing machine. Now I know this mark is the same on both sides because I just used my template. I don't want to cut on this line because this is where I want my seam to be. So I'm going to cut inside my seam allowance. So I just cut about a 1/2 inch like that. And like that. Now this is big enough to actually use to make a face covering, like a traditional face mask out of, so I saved those. This is going to be the center of the front. No, this is the inside. This corner is going to lay flatter if I snip it. So I do a couple snips. This is going to be a little bit neater if it's not bunchy at the corner. So I cut off the triangle like that. Okay, so now I'm going to sew around the entire perimeter, except I'm going to leave about 6 inches at the very end here to use to turn it inside out. Now, it doesn't matter too much what your seam allowances are, as long as they are consistent on like the sides and the bottom. If it's a 1/2 inch shorter, it's not going to matter too much. This really is a pretty loose pattern. Okay, so now you have it sewn all the way around the outside edges. Again, your corners are going to be bunchy if you don't snip them. So you kind of go around the whole thing, snip all your corners. Cutting toward my hand, that's probably really bad practice. Ooh, actually I want to cut more on that one than I did before. None of this is going to be visible, so it really doesn't matter how ugly it is. Okay. Now, most experienced sewers will have done something like this before. You're just turning the whole thing inside out. You're going to reach in. I like to reach into the farthest depth and turn it inside out. Now this fabric looks exactly the same on both sides, so it makes it a little more interesting to find the right side. So now you're going to reach in and poke out all those corners to make them nice 45-degree angles. Okay. And then you're going to check these inside corners. Some of them are angled. This one is actually straight corners. So if you need to smooth any of these stitches out, the time is to do it now, because now you can still turn it right side out if you need to. Because the next thing you're going to do is press this so that it lays really flat, so that when you do your final stitching, it looks all nice and neat. So you really want to kind of work these corners. It's easier if they're angled. Maybe I should have angled on this one. But often just kind of pull the fabric. And if one side's messy, you can just make that the inside where it's going to be glued anyhow. Because that is where your shield is going to go. That's the outline of your shield right there. So now I'm ironing around the entire outside. I'm really just doing the seams. I don't really care too much about the center, but this part is going to sew much easier if it is nice and pressed. And this is 100% cotton, so it gets pretty darn crisp. You can see the difference on this ironed side and the unironed side there. I pressed the entire thing. I got the corners neat. I did have to reclip them. This is the part that's going to show. So this is the part you really do want to look nice. It is all pressed now. I made sure I had a nice bobbin and everything ready and the right thread color, because this is going to show. I'm doing a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around, because that's what I like, and I'm a quilter and that's what I'm used to. The first corner I'm going to come to is going to be the one that has the gap that I used to turn, and it's just going to get sealed up by that little 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, now I have everything I just finished sewing. Either side can be the inside or outside. So if you see like a corner, this corner is a little more puckered, I'll make that the inside. And I'm going to just match the halves and get it like that. So the last thing you need to do is to sew this back seam, leaving a pleat at the bottom. It really does lay better if there's a pleat. I tried it both ways, trust me. So the easiest way I found to do it, I again tried a couple different ways, is to just do a zigzag, to lay these over on top of each other and zigzag from the top. And then I just kind of do about that much at the bottom. Like I said, about 6 inches. I just eyeball it because lazy. So I just zigzag down the back, and that's just about it. So I don't pin it. I just lay them on top of each other, and I have my machine set to zigzag. Okay, so now I'm going to trim these threads, and the sewing part is done. What you have is a tube with the shield shape cut out at the top and a little kind of kick plate in the back. Now we're on to the gluing phase. Every time I have done it, I have just glued one side first and clipped it and then left it to dry for an hour or two, come back and done the other two, because if the whole thing's wet at once, it's just too fussy, and I'm not in that big of a hurry. So this is the glue I'm using. It's Aleene's Fabric Fusion. I bought a 3-pack of it for under $10 at Joann's. I think it might have even been under $5. I do a thin bead of it, the whole length of the plastic, all the way up to the top. And this isn't super glue. You don't have like 5 minutes to get it stuck on there, but you don't want to smear it on your fabric and stuff, of course, either. So I just kind of very carefully lay it on the top. And then once I have it on there, I clip it in a couple pieces. Now my binder clips are all different shapes, or all different sizes, I mean, because they're borrowed from my husband's office. So I'll just glue these on there. So I use about 3 clips per side. The long bottom is longer, so I'll use more when I do that. So now there is some glue sticking to the fabric now, because there is. So now I just walk away for an hour, and it'll still be slightly tacky in an hour. So if there is glue stuck to something on the other side, you can just kind of give it a firm tug and pull it, but it'll be pretty set in about 60 to 90 minutes. Okay, so it's been over an hour now. I'm gonna unclip this. I'm gonna check it on the inside. Make sure this is where I said, if you give it a firm tug, you can get any fabric that's sticking off. But you can see what the final product is gonna look like there. I will just glue the bottom part of this and let it dry for another hour or so. Now I tend to use a lot of clips. I'm gonna put my Aleene's glue on again. Get my fabric all laid across there so I know how it's gonna go. Okay. Now is the time to clean off any glue you've got sticking on the side, which is what your newspaper is good for. And then I'm going to glue the other side, and tomorrow it'll be done. So this is one of the shields and the shield extensions that I made for Tucker Maxson. It's pretty close to the sample that I made with the red mask, the 3D printed one. This is made by some company. Okay. So just slip it on. just do that. And you can arrange this fabric depending on where your mic or anything lies. You may want it up more, or you may want it down more depending on your clothing. Around back. See, I can't feel it. But it's back there. And that's it. That's the whole thing. Your head is pretty protected. This is where you really are concerned about getting, germs in and out, is in and around your face. So I don't worry about covering the top of the head or anything. I'm just worried about where it's coming in around your face and filtering what is coming out of your face. And to wash it, I just hand washed it after the glue was dried for 48 hours in a cool water and some hand wash soap, like some generic store brand thing I bought, and it lasted just fine. I would definitely do one as a test before you do a whole bunch. This is a better quality plastic and is more durable, and the glue sticks much better. You can see I can't even really pull it off. The other one I made that was made from the acetate folder, the glue isn't sticking as well. I might have to experiment with different glues if I was going to do that, but these are the ones that I made for Tucker Maxon.